I refused to make my daughter's boyfriend a separate meal after he told our Thanksgiving table that eating meat was a moral failure. My daughter Becca has been dating Theo for about 8 months. I knew going in that he was vegan. She told me in September right when things started getting serious, and I said fine, no problem. I've hosted Thanksgiving for my whole family for 12 years, and I always make sure there's enough variety that people can actually eat. So I planned around him. I made sure the sweet potato casserole had no gelatin marshmallows. I pulled out a portion of green beans before I finished them with bacon. I roasted an entire separate pan of vegetables, Brussels sprouts and carrots and butternut squash, just for him. I bought vegan butter and set it on the table next to the regular. I spent the better part of 2 days in my kitchen, and I want to be clear about that because it matters later. Thanksgiving this year was 11 people. My husband and me, our son Derek, who's 24, Becca, Theo, my in-laws, my brother-in-law Paul and his wife, and their 2 kids. We sat down around 2 p.m. My husband stood up to start carving the turkey. That's when Theo set his napkin on the table and said he wanted to say something before we ate. I thought it was going to be Grace. It wasn't. He said he'd been thinking a lot about how we treat food choices like they're neutral when they actually aren't, and that he believed consuming animals was, and I'm quoting him directly here, a moral failure. He said he wanted to be honest about that rather than sit there in silence. The table went completely quiet. My father-in-law had a fork halfway to his mouth and just held it there. Paul set down the bread basket mid-pass. Derek looked at me. My husband stared at Theo like he was still trying to process what he'd just heard. Becca was looking at her lap. My husband said pretty quietly, "Excuse me?" Theo said he wasn't trying to ruin anything, and he appreciated being invited, but staying silent while something he felt strongly about was happening at the table felt dishonest. Paul said, "You're a guest in this house." Theo said he understood that. My mother-in-law looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then Becca cleared her throat and said, "Could I maybe make Theo something separate so we could all just move on?" And here's what I did. I pointed to the roasted vegetables sitting right in front of him. I pointed to the green beans. I told him the sweet potato casserole was vegan. The cranberry sauce was vegan, there was bread on the table, there was a whole section of this meal I had made specifically with him in mind. He said he appreciated that, but given the context, he wasn't really comfortable eating right now. I said that was his choice to make. Becca said, "Mom, can you please just make him a sandwich or something so we can get through this?" I said no. She asked why not. I said because I had spent 2 days making food that included things for him specifically, and I wasn't about to go back into the kitchen to make him something extra after he sat down at my table and told my family they were committing a moral failure by eating their Thanksgiving dinner. Theo said he hadn't called anyone a moral failure personally. He'd said the act itself was. I said, "You looked around this table while my husband was holding a carving knife and announced that what we were about to eat was a moral failure. I don't know what distinction you think you're making, but everyone sitting here heard the same thing." My husband told Theo he was welcome to stay and eat what was on the table, or he was welcome to leave if he'd be more comfortable, but either way we were going to eat now. Theo got up about 5 minutes later. Becca followed him out without saying anything to me. The rest of us sat there for a second, and then Paul said the gravy was getting cold and started passing dishes, which was honestly exactly the right move. We had Thanksgiving. It was a little quieter than usual, but it was fine. Becca called me that night. She said I'd been cruel, that I'd made Theo feel unwelcome and then refused to even try to accommodate him. I told her I had accommodated him. I'd spent 2 days doing exactly that, and I wasn't going to apologize for not doing more after what happened. She said he was just being honest about his beliefs. I said there's a difference between having beliefs and announcing them at someone else's holiday table while the host is standing there with a carving knife, and if Theo genuinely couldn't see that, it was something the two of them needed to work out. She said I was being dismissive. I told her I was being honest about how I felt, and I thought she of all people could respect that, since honesty at the dinner table was apparently something she valued now.